Good evening, everyone. This is Kelly from Culture in Motion. Due to technical difficulties, I'm taking a little bit of a different approach this evening. This is a purely audio segment. But don't worry, you'll still get to listen to me drone on and on, at least for a few minutes. Tonight, I wanted to share a little known yet highly controversial place with you all known as Mes Aynak. This particular area, which is located just outside Kabul in Afghanistan, in the Taliban-controlled Logar province, has become quite significant to me recently, and it's something that I have devoted a lot of energy to personally over the past week or so. So I'm hoping that you all will find it as fascinating as I do, and I'm also hoping that you all will be finding yourselves wanting to participate in the goings-on there as much as I do. Now, a bit of background, firstly, on Mes Aynak. It is an ancient site. It contains the remains of a 2,000-year-old Buddhist city. And that's on top of an even older 5,000-year-old Bronze Age site. And at nearly 500,000 square meters, it is a massive area that contains dozens of unique and never-before-seen stupas and temples, thousands of artifacts, and around 600 large Buddhist statues, similar to those destroyed by the Taliban in 2001 at Bamiyan. Now, although only 10% of the site has been excavated thus far, the discoveries at Mes Aynak are already rewriting the histories of Buddhism, of the Silk Road and trade across the Asian continent, and of Afghanistan itself. Now, a fun little fact for you all out there, Mes Aynak literally translates as Little Copper Well in Pashto, and as its name would suggest, it sits on the second largest known copper deposit in the entire world. And the Afghan government, in its eagerness to harvest an estimated $100 billion worth of copper buried directly beneath those archaeological ruins, actually sold the site to Chinese state-owned mining company, China Metallurgical Group Corporation, in 2007. Now, although Mes Aynak is an archaeological treasure trove of Buddhist and Bronze Age artifacts, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani announced earlier this year, after a visit to Beijing, that his government was ready to move ahead with the mine to earn much-needed revenue for his aid-dependent state. But here's the thing, everyone, so listen very carefully. To get to this copper would mean blowing up Mes Aynak and reducing it, along with an entire mountain range, to rubble. Now, I'm pretty sure I have an idea of what you're all thinking. Kelly, why in the hell should we give a damn about a pile of stones thousands of miles away in Afghanistan? Well, please allow me to explain the relevance of Mes Aynak. I would agree with probably most people out there, in all honesty, that it is extremely difficult for people to weigh the value of cultural heritage against an overwhelming humanitarian crisis, such as the one Afghanistan has been experiencing for over 3 decades. It can seem rather absurd at times. But if we allow ourselves to take a closer look, we can begin to understand the full devastation of a people's history being blown to pieces quite literally. The destruction of a people's cultural heritage, whether it's intentional or not, damages and can even destroy a people's dignity, its pride, its soul, and even more so, its roots and its memories. Cultural property preservation, therefore, is about more than saving ancient artifacts and monuments. It's an indicator of a country's stability and can be a route towards greater social unity, dialogue, and cooperation. In the case of Mes Aynak specifically, it's an indicator of the broader social, environmental, and developmental issues in Afghanistan that are set to manifest if the site is destroyed for mining extraction. The destruction of Mes Aynak would mean, and sadly has already meant in some cases, the forced displacement and relocation of countless native Afghans from the area who will never be able to return to their homes due to toxicity from mining activities. In neighboring Davo village, for instance, several residents have already stated that their lives have become absolutely nightmarish since the mines' arrival, including being kicked off their lands, pressured by Taliban insurgents and the government alike to leave the area entirely with little to no economic benefit. One local leader has even explained how China Metallurgical Group never carried out a community consultation and actually confiscated his community's property without ever paying or compensating residents. Moreover, despite assurances of jobs for the local population, few employment opportunities have been made available, and little to no details on how many Afghans will be trained, for how long, and how they will be selected have been provided. Contract provisions are vague, to say the least. Contract provisions contain various terms which are unclear, ambiguous, or completely exclude the local community altogether. The contract also makes no provision for how compensation is to be dealt with for land that has been in customary but not legally recognized use by the community. There's no detail on what is required to establish a custom, nor is a remedy set out for those who may find it difficult to establish customary usage. So we can look at that situation like this. In the event that water from a local resource is depleted for any reason, say from any one of the several droughts that have frequented Afghanistan over the past 20 years, the local population would not, under the current terms, have any priority rights to adjacent water sources. Now, last I checked, people need water to survive. That's an extremely, extremely relevant social issue. Furthermore, the current wording in the contract doesn't leave room for expansion of water usage by the local population, and that can actually restrict the ability of an affected community to expand in economic development. While some local residents would still consider backing the mine, representatives from the Afghan government and/or China Metallurgical Group have yet to explain just exactly how local communities will benefit. These concerning social dilemmas have been coupled with rife environmental destruction due to early mining exploration activities, ranging from the building of dirt roads to acid leaching to the loss of topsoil to the polluting of waterways that also affects neighboring Pakistan and can cause serious damage to water supplies for decades, if not for centuries. Under the current contract, there's no requirement for environmental assessments to be updated as the project progresses. Also missing is any provision allowing for the suspension of mining operations which cause environmental damage, or any procedures for how operations will proceed if environmental remediation works are required. And contrary to international standards, as well as Afghan environmental law, there is no contractual requirement to engage affected persons in identifying and deciding how to address environmental risks. The shortcomings and challenges of the Mes Aynak mine are so unbelievable and so copious that industry watchdog Global Witness even published a report in 2012 stating that, and I quote, "A detailed, workable, and properly funded plan for closing operations and reclaiming the site is needed before a mining project is approved," unquote. But you know what? I think I understand, or at least I hope I do. With Western aid drying up and few foreign troops remaining in the country, the Afghan government is desperately looking for ways to sustain itself, a situation that hopefully people could sympathize with. But while many Afghans believe that earning revenues from indigenous resources is the only way for the state to truly grow, few Afghans actually have faith that the authorities would manage those resources intelligently or responsibly. A report published by the U.S. Institute of Peace in November last year showed that political influence was evident at all stages of the tendering process, favoring bidders that often had no prior mining experience whatsoever. Another report, just published in April by the U.S. government's leading oversight authority on Afghanistan, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, found that the nearly $500 million US granted by the US government to back the Afghan mining industry had failed because the Afghan Ministry of Mines and Petroleum was incapable of managing new contracts, while the US evaluation of any progress was close to non-existent. Overall, it's estimated that corruption and abuse of political connections, not to mention general incompetence, have led to a total loss of government revenue that could easily be hundreds of millions of US dollars annually. Let's think about that for a moment. It goes without saying that Afghanistan faces an existential crisis over its untapped natural resources. After decades of war and insecurity, the Afghan government and foreign investors are pushing to exploit minerals under the ground, but real dangers still exist with little enforced regulation. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering, Kelly, how does all this tie back to the cultural preservation of Mes Aynak exactly? Well, please allow me to explain. For the past 5 years, the efforts of filmmaker Brent Huffman and Afghan archaeologist Kadir Tamouri through the Saving Mes Aynak campaign have played a vital role in delaying the demolition of Mes Aynak. A documentary filmed over the course of 5 years, Saving Mes Aynak, has brought international attention to the cultural relevance of the site, as well as to its greater social and environmental challenges, and to industry and political corruption within Afghanistan. The campaign is actively working to petition the United Nations Organization for Education, Science, and Culture to make Mes Aynak a World Heritage Site. Earning a World Heritage listing would effectively halt mining activities and allow the Saving Mes Aynak project, alongside Afghan authorities, industry professionals, and international agencies, to develop and implement a sound strategy that would improve governance in the Afghan mining sector. Saving Mes Aynak is currently raising funds to carry out further archaeological research at Mes Aynak and to train and employ local residents in excavation, site security, and conservation. Now, in a country as culturally rich and diverse as Afghanistan, these are skills that can transfer easily to other cultural sites or to other Afghan communities that can in turn be employed at sites throughout the country. Now, I've done this myself, but I also highly recommend that you do it. You can support the campaign in several ways by donating to the project's Indiegogo campaign, watching or screening the film, signing the campaign petition, following Saving Mes Aynak through social media, and of course, simply sharing all of the aforementioned with your own networks. I will provide some links for you all to research and peruse and hopefully share with your friends and family. But bottom line that I want to get to right now is that Afghanistan doesn't have to be poor. It doesn't have to be off the radar or simply associated with literacy, terrorism, corruption, and poverty. Afghanistan, with its talented people and cultural heritage, has all the potential to be a growing and vibrant nation. Beyond due diligence and amending industry laws and practices, Afghan civil society has to educate itself on natural resource governance, revenue management, and the social, cultural, and environmental effects of mining. First and foremost, Afghanistan needs leaders who care for their people, who can grow political stability and transparency. Leaders who are at least as interested in the wealth of their people as they are in their own, and who make education for the masses a priority rather than the accumulation of resources at the expense of Afghan communities. But I want to ask, what do all of you think of the Mes Aynak conundrum, and what solutions, if any, would you have to offer up? Please share your comments and thoughts with me and our audiences below, and let me know if I have missed anything. For now, you have been listening to Culture in Motion this time around. Thanks for listening. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you all soon.